Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. Today, we're going to be taking a look at Canaan,
Okay.
ticker symbol CAN,
Interesting.
a company making waves in the crypto mining space.
Okay.
Now, you might have heard some buzz about Rosenblatt analysts
Right.
giving Canaan a buy rating with a price target of $8.
Oh.
That's over 400% upside potential, which is pretty wild,
Yeah.
even for a crypto stock.
For sure.
But of course, we need to look beyond the hype and figure out what's really going on.
Absolutely.
What's interesting here is that Canaan's recent performance actually gives some weight to that optimism.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's break it down for our listeners.
Sure.
Canaan closed at $1.79 on February 20th, 2025,
Okay.
up 0.56% for the day.
Yeah.
But is this just a temporary bump, or is there something more substantial behind it?
Well, it's worth noting that Canaan mined 88 Bitcoins in January 2025.
Wow.
That's a whopping 42% increase from December 2024.
Wow, that's a significant jump.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're not just benefiting from the overall crypto market.
Right.
They're actually getting better at what they do.
Exactly.
Does this suggest they're becoming more efficient or maybe using better equipment?
Exactly. That kind of increase in mining output usually points to improvements in their operations.
Okay.
Either they're getting more out of their existing equipment or they've upgraded to something more powerful.
Okay.
In a market as volatile as crypto, that's definitely a positive sign.
So for those of you who are new to the crypto mining scene, how crucial is the link between Canaan's business and Bitcoin's performance?
It's fundamental. Canaan makes its money by selling mining equipment.
Right.
So naturally, their success is very closely tied to Bitcoin's price and how profitable it is to mine.
Well,
Think of it this way. If Bitcoin thrives, demand for mining equipment soars and Canaan benefits.
makes sense.
But if Bitcoin falters, so does the demand for their product.
That makes perfect sense. And recently we've seen Bitcoin hovering around the $60,000 mark,
Yeah,
relatively stable for a change.
right.
Does this stability work in Canaan's favor?
It could, that stability might give potential buyers more confidence in the market.
Yeah.
It could also translate to steadier profits for miners, which could then drive demand for Canaan's equipment.
Oh.
However, we must remember that Bitcoin's notorious volatility is always lurking in the background.
Right. So even with a period of stability, Bitcoin could always take a sharp turn, and Canaan would likely follow suit.
Okay, exactly.
Now let's get back to that buy rating from Rosenblatt and their $8 price target. You've got to admit, it's hard not to get a little excited about that kind of potential upside.
Of course, a potential 400% gain is going to turn heads,
Yeah.
but it's important to remember that reaching such a target would require a confluence of factors,
Right.
not just positive market sentiment.
Right.
For Canaan to hit $8, we'd need to see sustained growth in Bitcoin's price, and Canaan would have to significantly scale up their production without sacrificing their profit margins.
Okay.
That's a pretty tall order.
Absolutely. It's like that perfect storm scenario.
Yeah.
Now, I've seen some chatter online about impulse wave and descending triangle breakout patterns with Canaan stock.
Okay.
Could you break those down for our listeners who might not be familiar with technical analysis jargon?
Sure, these terms refer to patterns that some traders use to try and predict future price movements based on historical chart data.
Okay.
Picture this. The descending triangle breakout is like a coiled spring.
Hmm.
The stock is consolidating within a narrowing price range, forming the shape of a triangle on the chart.
Got it.
If the stock breaks out above the upper line of that triangle, it's seen as a bullish signal,
Okay.
suggesting that it's ready to move higher.
So it's about recognizing those visual patterns and interpreting what they might mean for future price action.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say those patterns play out as some traders are hoping.
Right.
What kind of short-term price movement could we realistically expect to see?
Well, if Canaan manages to hold above the $1.75 to $1.80 range and Bitcoin manages to break through that $60,000 resistance level, it's not unreasonable to think that Canaan's stock could test the $2.50 to $3 range in the near future.
Interesting. So the short-term outlook seems pretty promising.
Yeah.
But how about the bigger picture?
Sure.
What kind of macroeconomic factors could potentially throw a wrench into things?
You're right to bring that up. It's not just about technical patterns. The broader economic environment can have a huge impact on any stock,
Yeah.
especially one in a volatile sector like crypto.
Sure.
One thing that we need to keep an eye on is the possibility of increased tariffs.
Okay.
We know Trump has proposed a 25% tariff on goods from Canada and Mexico, and there's been talk of expanding that to China.
And of course, this matters because Canaan's production is primarily based in China.
Exactly.
Could those tariffs put a serious dent in their profits?
They certainly could. Increased tariffs would likely increase Canaan's costs, which could squeeze their profit margins, especially if they can't pass those costs along to their customers.
All right, so it's a classic cost pressure scenario.
Yeah.
Now, some are saying that potential deregulation under a Trump administration could benefit the crypto industry. Could that offset the negative impact of tariffs?
That's a possibility. If deregulation creates a more favorable environment for crypto, we could see increased demand, which might help offset those cost increases from tariffs.
Okay.
It's still a developing situation, so we'll have to wait and see how it plays out.
Okay, so the tariff situation seems like a bit of a mixed bag. Now, what about energy costs?
Right.
That's always a big factor for mining profitability, isn't it?
Absolutely. Energy is a major input cost for crypto miners, and fluctuations in global energy prices can significantly impact their bottom line.
Oh.
If energy costs rise, it could squeeze Canaan's margins even if Bitcoin's price remains stable.
So it seems like there are some potential tailwinds like deregulation,
Right.
but also headwinds like tariffs and volatile energy costs. It paints a pretty complex picture.
You've got the macro environment is rarely simple. And when you're dealing with a sector as dynamic as crypto, it's even more important to be aware of those external factors that could impact your investment decisions.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from Canaan's recent performance and that tempting Rosenblatt price target
Yeah.
to the broader economic factors that could come into play.
Right.
But let's get to the question on everyone's mind: should you buy, hold, or sell Canaan?
That's the million-dollar question, and as you might expect, there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Right.
It really depends on your individual investment style and risk tolerance. Let's start with the momentum traders out there.
Okay.
They're likely drawn to Canaan's recent upward trend,
Right.
but even for them, careful risk management is crucial.
So what would risk management look like in this scenario?
For someone looking to capitalize on short-term momentum, setting a stop-loss order below $1.65 could help limit potential losses if the stock takes an unexpected turn.
That makes sense. So for those riding the waves, Canaan could be a good play,
Yeah.
but only with the right precautions in place. Now, what about investors who are a little more risk-averse? Should they be jumping on this bandwagon?
For those who aren't comfortable with that level of volatility, waiting might be the best strategy.
Okay.
They might want to see Canaan break through that 200-day moving average resistance level we talked about earlier.
Right.
That could signal a more sustained upward trend and potentially reduce their risk exposure.
Right. So play it safe and wait for a stronger signal. But what about the long-term outlook? What's Canaan's potential down the road?
In the long run, Canaan's success really hinges on two main factors: Bitcoin's performance and their ability to navigate the complex and constantly evolving crypto market.
So buckle up, everyone. It sounds like we're in for a wild ride.
Indeed, the crypto market is anything but predictable,
For sure.
but that's part of what makes it so exciting.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground today, but before we move on, are there any specific things you'll be watching closely with Canaan in the coming weeks and months?
For me, it boils down to a few key areas. First, we need to keep a close eye on Bitcoin's price movements. Any major swings will likely impact Canaan's stock.
That's a given. What else is on your radar?
Canaan's Q1 2025 earnings report is going to be crucial. We'll be looking for confirmation of revenue growth and profitability, especially after that impressive jump in Bitcoin mining output in January.
So those numbers will really tell us if they can back up the hype.
Exactly. And finally, I'll be looking for any announcements about Canaan expanding into new areas such as AI computing
Okay.
that could diversify their business and potentially reduce their reliance on Bitcoin's unpredictable nature.
That would be a game changer for sure. All right, that wraps up part one of our discussion on Canaan. We've looked at their recent performance, the factors driving their stock price, and the risks and opportunities they face. We'll be back in part two to continue our analysis. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. We're in the middle of our analysis of Canaan, that intriguing crypto mining company with a ticker symbol CAN.
And we've already uncovered some pretty interesting details, from those impressive Bitcoin mining numbers to the potential impact of tariffs. Now I'm curious about the competitive landscape. How does Canaan stack up against the other players in the crypto mining space?
Sure.
It's a pretty crowded field, right?
It is. Canaan faces stiff competition from giants like Bitmain and MicroBT.
Okay.
These companies are major players in the market, particularly when it comes to market share and technological innovation.
Right.
They're constantly pushing the boundaries of mining hardware efficiency, which puts pressure on Canaan to keep pace.
So it's a technological arms race of sorts.
Yeah.
What are some of the key factors that will determine Canaan's success in this competitive landscape?
Well, innovation is absolutely paramount. They need to keep developing cutting-edge mining rigs that can compete on performance and power consumption.
Right.
Imagine you're a miner, you want the most efficient machines possible, right? The
Yeah.
ones that can generate the most Bitcoin while using the least amount of electricity.
Right. Because efficiency translates directly to profitability, especially with energy costs being such a wild card.
Exactly. The more efficient their machines, the lower their operating costs and the better their profit margins.
Right.
But it's not just about the hardware itself. Canaan also needs to build strong partnerships with mining farms and data centers.
Okay.
Think of it this way. These are the big customers who are buying large quantities of mining equipment.
So it's a combination of technological prowess and strategic alliances.
Mm,
Those relationships are essential for securing large-scale orders and ensuring that their equipment is being widely adopted.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just build a great product. You need to get it into the hands of the people who are going to use it.
Okay.
Now, we've talked about their technology and their market position,
Right.
but what about their financials?
Yeah.
Can they actually turn a profit in this volatile market?
That's a good question. Their financial performance has been a bit up and down, hasn't it?
It has.
I imagine that's largely due to the inherent volatility of Bitcoin.
That's right. When Bitcoin's price goes up, miners make more money.
Right.
And that often translates to increased demand for mining equipment. Okay.
But when Bitcoin's price falls, the opposite happens.
Right?
Miners become less profitable, and they may delay or cancel orders for new equipment. Canaan's revenue is directly impacted by these swings in the market.
That makes sense. But you mentioned earlier that Canaan mined 88 Bitcoins in January. That seems pretty impressive. Does that suggest a potential for strong revenue growth?
It certainly does.
Yeah.
That jump in mining output indicates that they're either operating more efficiently or using more powerful equipment, which is a good sign.
Right.
However, we need to see those operational gains translate into actual profits on their balance sheet.
Right. It's one thing to mine a lot of Bitcoin. It's another thing to actually convert that into sustainable profits.
Exactly. And that's why their upcoming Q1 2025 earnings report will be so important. Investors will be scrutinizing those numbers to see if Canaan can turn their mining success into a solid bottom line.
So it's all about proving they can play in the big leagues and make money while doing it. Speaking of which, how does Canaan's market capitalization compare to their competitors?
Are they a minnow or a shark in the crypto mining ocean?
Well, they're not quite a shark yet, but they're definitely not a minnow either. Their market cap puts them somewhere in between.
Okay.
They've got a decent market presence, which gives them some room to grow, but they're still vulnerable to competition from the larger, more established players in the industry.
So they're kind of in that sweet spot where they have the potential to disrupt the market, but also a lot to prove.
That's a good way to put it. They're a company to watch for sure. They could be a major player in the future of crypto mining, but they need to overcome some significant hurdles. Now, we've talked about competition, financials, market position.
Right.
But let's address the elephant in the room, shall we? Regulation? How is the evolving regulatory landscape impacting Canaan and the crypto mining industry as a whole?
It's a big question for sure. The whole crypto world seems to be holding its breath, waiting to see how regulators are going to approach this rapidly evolving technology.
You're right. The regulatory environment for crypto is still very much in flux, and it varies considerably from one country to another.
Right.
This creates both challenges and opportunities for companies like Canaan.
It's a bit like the Wild West out there, isn't it?
It is.
How are they navigating this regulatory maze?
They're doing what a lot of companies in this space are doing, closely monitoring regulatory developments globally and trying to anticipate what's coming next.
Okay.
They're also actively engaging with policymakers and regulators to try and advocate for clear and sensible regulations that support innovation in the crypto space.
So they're playing both defense and offense when it comes to regulation, trying to minimize risk while also positioning themselves to benefit from potential opportunities.
Exactly. They're trying to strike that delicate balance between compliance and innovation. It's not easy, but it's essential for any company that wants to succeed in the long term. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about something that's been generating a lot of buzz lately.
Right.
Canaan's potential expansion into AI computing. Could this be their ticket to diversification and long-term success?
I've heard some whispers about that. It's a fascinating idea. Could you elaborate on what this might look like?
Sure, Canaan's core expertise is in designing high-performance computing hardware.
Right.
That's what their mining rigs are all about. Now, it turns out that the kind of processing power needed for crypto mining is also very well suited for AI applications.
So their mining rigs could potentially be repurposed or adapted for AI tasks.
Exactly. And that opens up a whole new market for them, one that's not as dependent on the ups and downs of the crypto market.
That's a pretty big deal. Diversification is often seen as a way to reduce risk, right?
It is.
If they're not solely reliant on the crypto market, they're less vulnerable to its volatility.
That's the idea. It would give them more stable revenue stream and potentially open up new avenues for growth.
But is there any concrete evidence to suggest that they're actually moving in this direction, or is it mostly speculation at this point?
There have been some hints and rumors, but nothing official yet. We haven't seen any major announcements or product launches in the AI space.
Okay.
So for now, it's more of a speculative play, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
So if they were to make a serious move into AI, what kind of signals should investors be looking for?
Well, I'd be watching for a few key things. First, any official announcements about new AI-focused products or partnerships.
Okay.
Second, any changes in their research and development spending that suggest they're investing heavily in AI technology.
Okay.
And third, any comments from management during earnings calls or investor presentations that indicate AI is a strategic priority.
That's helpful. So we're looking for concrete actions, not just rumors or speculation.
Exactly. Actions speak louder than words, especially when it comes to investing.
Hmm.
Now, we've covered a lot of ground in this part of our discussion. We've talked about competition financials, regulation, and even the potential for expansion into AI.
Right.
But before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier, risk.
Yeah.
Investing in Canaan, or any crypto-related stock for that matter, comes with inherent risks.
You're absolutely right. And it's important for investors to understand and acknowledge those risks before making any decisions. So let's break it down. What are the biggest red flags investors should be aware of when considering Canaan?
Well, the most obvious risk, as we've discussed, is Bitcoin's volatility. Canaan's stock price is intrinsically tied to Bitcoin's performance.
Okay.
Any significant swings in the crypto market, up or down, will directly impact their valuation.
So if Bitcoin crashes, Canaan could be in trouble.
It's a real possibility, and it's not just about price fluctuations. Regulatory changes, technological advancements, even security breaches in the crypto space could all negatively impact Canaan's business.
Right. So there are a lot of external factors that are outside of their control. Now, what about competition? We talked about the big players in the market, but what about the emergence of new, potentially disruptive technologies?
That's another valid concern. The crypto mining landscape is constantly evolving.
Yeah.
New algorithms, new hardware, new approaches to mining could emerge and quickly make Canaan's existing technology obsolete.
So they need to stay ahead of the curve, right? They
Right.
can't afford to rest on their laurels. They need to be proactive, adaptable, and constantly looking for ways to improve their efficiency and performance.
Exactly. Innovation is key in this industry. Now we've got Bitcoin volatility, regulatory uncertainty, competitive pressures, potential technological disruption. It sounds like a minefield out there.
It can be. But
Mm.
as you said earlier, risk is inherent in any investment.
Right.
The key is to understand the specific risks associated with a particular investment and to make informed decisions based on your individual risk tolerance and investment goals.
Well said. I think we've done a thorough job of outlining the potential rewards and risks associated with investing in Canaan. Now, before we move on to our final conclusions, is there anything else you'd like to add about the challenges and opportunities facing Canaan?
Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast for the final part of our look into Canaan, ticker symbol CAN.
We've discussed their impressive Bitcoin mining output, the competitive landscape they face, and the potential risks and rewards you need to consider when investing in this dynamic sector.
It's been quite a journey. But now it's time to tackle the question that's likely on everyone's mind. Is Canaan a buy, hold, or sell?
Well, as we've explored, Canaan is a company with considerable potential, but it also comes with its fair share of risks. Remember, their success is very closely tied to the often unpredictable world of cryptocurrency, especially Bitcoin. So it's crucial to weigh those factors carefully.
You've emphasized that this is not a decision to be made lightly. What are some of the key risks investors should be aware of?
We've discussed Bitcoin's volatility, regulatory uncertainty, competitive pressures, and the potential for technological disruption. These aren't just hypothetical risks, they are very real factors that could significantly impact Canaan's profitability.
And let's not forget those external forces we talked about, like the potential impact of tariffs and the ever-present fluctuations in energy costs. It sounds like there's a lot to consider.
Absolutely. For the risk-averse investor, Canaan might be a stock to watch from a distance. There are plenty of other investment opportunities out there with more stable and predictable returns.
So if you're not comfortable with a high degree of risk, this might not be the right fit for your portfolio. But what about those who are willing to embrace a bit more risk, especially if they believe in the long-term potential of cryptocurrency?
For those investors, Canaan could present an intriguing opportunity. If Bitcoin continues on an upward trajectory and Canaan can effectively execute their growth strategy, there's definitely potential for significant gains.
We did talk about that eye-catching 400% upside potential based on Rosenblatt's price target, but I know you cautioned us about taking those targets as guarantees.
Right, those price targets are simply projections based on certain assumptions. They're not a crystal ball. It's crucial to remember that the market can be unpredictable, and there's no way to know for sure if or when a particular target will be reached.
So don't go betting the farm on any single analyst's prediction. Now, you've given us a lot to think about, both the potential rewards and the inherent risks. But if you had to boil it down, what's your overall assessment of Canaan? Is it a buy, hold, or sell?
If I had to give a definitive answer right now, I'd lean towards a hold for the time being. While Canaan has a lot going for it, there are still a lot of unknowns. I'd like to see how they navigate the competitive landscape, how they address the regulatory challenges, and how their financials shape up in the coming quarters.
So we're essentially taking a cautious approach, waiting for more data before making a firm decision.
Exactly. It's a wait-and-see approach. We need more information before we can confidently recommend either buying or selling.
That sounds prudent. But for those who are already invested in Canaan, or who are seriously considering adding it to their portfolio, what key metrics should they be watching closely?
There are a few key areas I'd focus on. First, keep a close eye on Bitcoin's price. We've already talked about how Canaan's stock price is directly influenced by Bitcoin's performance. If Bitcoin goes up, Canaan likely follows. If Bitcoin takes a hit, Canaan will likely feel it too.
Is that close correlation we talked about earlier? What else should investors be paying attention to?
Next, closely examine Canaan's earnings reports. Look for signs of revenue growth, consistent profitability, and expanding profit margins. Those are all positive indicators of a healthy and growing business.
So it's not just about how much Bitcoin they're mining, it's about how effectively they're converting that into profits.
Yeah.
What else should be on their radar?
Be on the lookout for any announcements about new strategic partnerships, expansion into new markets, or significant technological advancements. These could be signals that Canaan is proactively positioning themselves for long-term success.
That makes sense. These are all valuable clues that can help investors assess Canaan's potential. Well, folks, we've reached the end of our look at Canaan. We've covered a lot of ground, from their recent performance to the macroeconomic factors that could influence their future. We've delved into their competitive landscape, their financials, and even their potential for venturing into new areas like AI computing.
We've explored both the potential upside and the inherent risks involved in investing in this company. It's important to remember that Canaan operates in a volatile market, and any investment in this space should be made with a clear understanding of the risks.
Hopefully, this episode has given you a deeper understanding of Canaan, their position in the crypto mining industry, the factors that could impact their future. Remember, always do your own research carefully, consider your risk tolerance, and make informed investment decisions that align with your financial goals. Don't forget to subscribe to Investing Talk Podcast for more insightful discussions like this one. Share this episode with your friends and leave us a comment letting us know what you think.
Until next time, happy investing.